Let me read to you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 39 to 42. It's the Gospel for Friday in the 23rd week of Ordinary Time. St. Luke writes, Jesus also told the people this parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? A student is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, and pay no attention to the plank that is in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. That's from Luke chapter 6, verse 39 to 42. We are led to think of spiritual blindness. In the Gospel that I've just read, our Lord speaks of blindness, be it partial or total. He is not speaking of physical blindness, but of spiritual, though he employs the image of the physical blindness to make his point. We read that Jesus also told the people this parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. The one he condemns is morally at fault. He is a hypocrite, implying that it is because of this fault that he cannot see properly. So it is that we are invited to think of blindness in matters moral and spiritual. Take an example. Consider a classical instance of this. The Emperor Julian the Apostate, who lived from 330 to 363 AD. He was emperor from 361 to 363. He was the son of the half-brother of Constantine the Great. The historian Warren Carroll, now deceased, tells us that Julian was the only Christian monarch from the time of Constantine to the French Revolution to openly reject Christianity. He strove to revive ancient Roman paganism, even attempting to erase his own baptism by bathing in the blood of a bull. Among his anti-Christian efforts was one that was particularly singular. He was aware, of course, of Christ's prediction about the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. As our Lord had said, I say to you, there will not be left here a stone upon another stone that will not be thrown down. That's from Matthew chapter 24, verse 2. Christ was the new and true temple, and his prediction was fulfilled in 70 AD during the First Jewish-Roman War. Well, so Julian decided, let all that be invalidated by a rebuilding of the temple. In 362 AD, Julian left Constantinople and arrived in Antioch to prepare for his invasion of Persia. However busy he must have been, he met with the chiefs of the Jews and promised to aid them in the rebuilding of their temple. So the great work began by numbers of enthusiastic Jews, actively supported by Julian for his own reasons. For his part, St. Cyril, Bishop of Jerusalem, lately returned from exile, beheld all these preparations without any concern, relying on the gospel prophecies. The whole attempt came to nothing, as we read in narratives provided by writers such as Nazianzen, Chrysostom, and Theodoret. The Roman pagan historian Arminianus Marcellinus confirms their account in his own way. In his book Res Gestae, book 23, chapter 1, verse number 3, he describes it quite simply. Terrifying balls of flame, he writes, kept bursting forth near the foundations of the temple, and made the place inaccessible to the workmen, some of whom were burned to death, and since in this way the element persistently repelled them, the enterprise halted. The eruption, involving fire and some kind of earthquake, ceased with the project. Meanwhile, back at Antioch in the winter of 362 to 363, Julian wrote his books against the Christians. Following this, he commenced his Persian invasion, and on the 26th of June 363, he was wounded in the side by an arrow in a small cavalry skirmish. He died during the night. Various reports concerning the circumstances of his death have come down to us. Both Christians and pagans believed the rumour that he cried out when dying, "You have conquered, O Galilean." It was said that Julian was passionate, arbitrary, vain, prejudiced, blindly submissive to the rhetoricians and magicians. He was blind. Specifically, he was blindly submissive to the magicians. Now all of this I mention as indicative of spiritual blindness. Plainly, there was a great willfulness in Julian's attitude to Jesus Christ, and he wasted the promise inherent in his life and position. It was not simply a matter of failed understanding, poor reasoning, in a word, of his making mistakes. The will was involved, an inner choice, and habits of heart that were the result of repeated choices. That is to say, one's understanding of truth, and specifically of religious and moral truth, will be profoundly affected by the presence or absence of virtue. A person whose inner decisions take him along the path of vice will be rendered blind. He will not see the truth. He will not understand, though he will think he does understand and that he is in the light. The path to wisdom is the path to virtue, and the surest way of virtue is that of following Jesus Christ. I am the way, the truth, and the life, he said. Our Lord tells us in the Beatitudes that blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. The state of the heart, which is to say, one's moral and spiritual condition, aided and sustained by grace, has a profound effect on our capacity to see, to understand, and to judge in the things of God. All this brings us back to the Gospel passage I read from Luke chapter 6, verse 39 to 42, in which our Lord warns us against blindness. If we are blind, we shall not be in any position to see what we need and what others need, especially in the spiritual realm. How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? The person to whom our Lord is speaking is, we read him say, a hypocrite. His heart is not right before God, and so he cannot see, understand, and judge his own condition, let alone that of his neighbour. You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.